If you were looking for the best RPG that the PS2 had to offer exactly 105 days before 9/11, then you were looking for Dark Cloud. Yeah, baby, I've been itching to talk about this game. There's moon people, giant snakes, even larger hairy apes, chess mimics, questionable relationship dynamics, maybe there's a cat girl, I don't know. This game's got the meats, quicktime events to avoid making engaging combat, there's some awkward sexual tension, sunken ships and stinky clouds. Map. Skydog and boss fights, Link but more of a twink. Little bear guys with daddy issues, more quicktime events. A backflip. This game has it all. Somehow this game is both cozy and mysterious. Bright blue skies with soft green grass, potentially photograph-sourced clouds overhead, and a windmill with a rustic fantasy architecture that is powered by magic of some sort. The textures are warm and welcoming, nostalgic for me, and likely due to caca to everyone born after 2005. The characters in this game live comfortably on the more cute and unrealistic end of the uncanny spectrum. Except when they rotate. I don't want to look at them anymore. That aside, the animations are pleasant, relaxed even. There's a very gentle sense of time passing as we get a look at the sky with each passing quarter of the day. It's such a soothing and therapeutic experience. Until this guy rolls up. He's the villain. Big Evil Genie Guy commits an act of terrorism on your hometown 105 days before 9/11 if you played this on release day in America, and now all is lost. Unless... through some sort of miracle we've survived. Oh wait, no, it's just the Fairy King, the entity that unites all of nature's spirits. We're given some exposition and left to frolic about in the now empty valley that we once called home. The terrain is surprisingly intact and not devastated by the onslaught we just watched happen. There's even butterflies. And that goofy smile. This is where the game really begins. We're greeted with the unfortunately challenging camera controls of an early PS2 era RPG. I checked the menus as one should when facing such obstacles and found that there were no options left but to suffer. And suffer I did. I made my way to the only house in sight. Inside, sitting quite comfortably, was the mayor. It's not clear if the Fairy King saved him or if he's immune to explosions. Despite his immunity to destruction, he feels helpless and offers us no consolation. Since the position of mayor just opened up, I decided to show some initiative and perform a tax collection. I found one prickly worm. I was feeling large and in charge, so I set off to adventure my way through his mysterious cave. The Divine Beast Cave, which does not appear to be mysterious once you're inside its lackluster quarters, contains a very interesting ecosystem. One which supports the lifestyles of hog beasts and skeleton soldiers, poisonous bats, sentient statues, and amphibious catfish named Opar. To survive these treacherous caves, I'd have to master the art of combat. I'd need to overcome being outnumbered, and often being gooey. Yuck. Fairy Dada gives us a tutorial on how to collect these brown nuts that contain little town things. Atla. Google says that Atla stands for Avatar the Last Airbender, but I assure you that is not what is inside of these coconuts. I return to the surface, weary from a day of combat and coconut collection. Father has returned, and we share an intimate moment. He lets out a chuckle and is happy to see that we've collected some Atla. Using children's drawings, he describes the power of our blue handrock thing, which is shown as green here, but it is blue. This is where the town building part of the game comes in. You're tasked with rebuilding the town, which at first seems pretty trivial. You could put anything anywhere and the people who live there would just have to deal with it, wouldn't they? But there's rewards if you do it right. But I'm the new mayor. I choose where you live. And I've decided that I want my townsfolk to be happy. So you'll get to live where you want to live. So I don't really get to choose where you live. A little bit. I get a little bit of agency in this. Fun fact, the Georama used to look like this. Which is pretty cool. This was like it in the beta or something. I don't know. Not really sure. But it used to look like this at some point. Next, I returned to the dungeon seeking more little townspeople to populate my empire. Instead, I encounter a cat. I pillage and loot, kill and collect, thrashing my way deeper into the cave. I find a banana. Dark Cloud's dungeons contain multiple floors, each randomly generated, and then populated from a pool of predetermined enemies. To attain the key that unlocks the door to the next floor down, you have to defeat these enemies, hoping that one of them has the key. Alongside this pursuit for progress, we're meant to be collecting Atlas, which in many cases are mandatory for progression. On a surface level, this seems like a drag, just making our way through the same layouts floor after floor, but they do something very clever to motivate you. They dangle the potential of a new cutscene or special encounter in front of you, The story's not very polished and often doesn't even make an attempt at being interesting, but the charm and cozy aesthetics keep you in. It's like a perfect accident. Or maybe they want it to be like this. I don't know. Anyways, nerd rant over. We're going back into the mines. And what is this? An empty room? 3 skeletons spring to life, talk some smack, and we're plunged into a fight that we likely will win. Also, I am calling them skeletons, but it says above their heads that they are skeletons, so... I stand victorious, proud of my careful footwork and swift blade, when suddenly, a new undead obstacle takes a stand against me. According to the Fairy King, who just showed up out of nowhere, he's a tough one. I'm gonna have to stop pulling my punches. It's time to get serious. You know that this is a high-stakes battle when the QuickTime events show up on the screen. The Fairy King explains to us how pressing buttons work, and then we're faced with overcoming the foe that stands before us.
We are cutting! Yeah, baby!
And we're back to the dungeons. The Fairy King has decided that it's time to discuss how weapons work. Dark Cloud is often remembered for its unique weapon upgrade system. You attach various gems to weapons, and when they have enough experience, you can level up the weapon, causing them to absorb the attached gems. You now have new slots open, and the system expands on this by allowing you to evolve weapons. In addition to this, we have what the game calls synth spheres. If you want, you can status break a weapon down into a synth sphere, which then can be used just like any other gem. It's pretty neat to see such a seemingly generic game have such ambitious game design. Balancing a system like this would be a nightmare, and I'm sure it was because often this game feels horribly imbalanced. Okay, I'm tired of the dungeon. I want to go back to the surface. I start by putting more of the little people I've collected into their respective homes, slowly rebuilding my once very cozy town. Someone with a drive for intellectual engagement might find this cookie-cutter format to be boring, but not me. I like simplicity. I like the soft music. I like the silly little shapes I have to match. An event. At last I'm rewarded for my dreary time in the Divine Beast Cave. Gaffer's finally got everything he lost back. With his buggy back in working condition, he's prepared to reopen his shop. This is a big deal for us. I can finally begin buying and trading. Leading up to this, I was required to survive off of the various spoils I'd find in the dungeon. And sometimes I'd find loot in people's houses. I feel a little bit bad, but I like to think of it like they're leaving gifts out for Santa, and I'm Santa. I fix up the home of these 2 brothers, and of course the first thing they do is get into a fight. Brothers, am I right? They argue about the concept of material possession. The shorter of the 2 makes a powerful statement. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine. Sounds a bit like an abusive relationship. The taller of the 2 has had it up to here, and potentially years of tension created by this strained relationship comes to a boil. They agree to battle, and leave me standing alone in their living room. This is getting very intense, and resolving their dynamic will require privacy, I suppose. Still a little weird that they had to shut the door. If you're like me and are curious to know who came out on top in their bout, I'm sorry to inform you that we may never know. They both seem content with their living situation and nothing has changed. Maybe they just had to let off some steam. Who knows? I made conversation with my mother, who is confused as to why I don't know the features of my own home. Good point. That is weird. I'm suddenly confronted by a hot topic teenager, who has been keeping their eyes on me apparently. The edgy teenager seems to think that the blue stone on our left wrist, the Atlamilia, is the source of my capabilities in the battlefield. He requests that I give him the special stone, but I refuse. It's time for another high-stakes battle, QuickTime event style. Again, I'm a professional QuickTime event performer, so don't try this at home. We exchange some unusually long glances, and with some light footwork, I easily deflect his attacks, and things are looking good. And then they let loose their even lighter footwork onto the back of my head. It all comes to a head, when the evil sword guy prepares a purple beam to blast us with. And when I say us, I mean the cat and I. My love for cats drives me to defend against the attack, in hopes of petting her one last time. Success, but my foe still stands between me and an unpet kitten. Battered and bruised, I sit up preparing myself for another QuickTime event. In an interesting turn of events, the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure looking guy decides to spare us, and even offers us a gift. A changing potion? How strange. What exactly would a changing potion be used for? Change what? Oh god. No, oh god. Uh-oh. That's not, oh no. Okay. Okay. Alright. Let's talk about it. The default name for her is Zhao, but if I'm doing the cat girl thing, I'm gonna name her Nico. I give her the changing potion and she changes. Into a cat-girl hybrid. She's excited and impressed by her new human-like form. She then arches her back like a cat girl does and immediately refers to me as Master. Now, I'm as happy to feed into the neurodivergence of a cat girl as much as anyone else is, but this dynamic has some problems. For starters, we're a teenage boy in this game, and she also seems to be quite young. I feel like it's strange for a 12-year-old girl to refer to a 14-year-old boy as her master, but maybe things were different in Japan during the early 2000s. At the very least, our protagonist seems to be slightly uncomfortable at the turn of events, so we're not crazy for thinking it's weird. The Fairy King makes another show-stopping appearance to describe the party system to us. This game has a party system that allows for you to rotate between party members freely, except for on certain floors that require a specific party member to stay out for the entire floor. Okay, that's it. He's out of here. I'm once again left to my own devices. So I do what I do best, look for loot in people's houses. Ah, but there's a person here. It's Dyke. A lot of interesting choices went into the American release of this game. I do some more town building, and by now, you're understanding the game loop. It's grindy. It's broken up by the town building aspects and some fun cutscenes, but it's still grindy. Even in making this video, I've had to really consider how to make such a repetitive game loop interesting. In doing this, I've thought a lot about the position of the developers on this game, trying to make the most of a unique but potentially very boring cycle. Speaking of boring, I'm getting bored trying to be analytical about this game. It's dungeon time, baby. We're gonna have to start by crossing this small gap. Oh no, I can't make this jump. See, this is why we all need a catgirl companion. And naturally, she performs a front flip as is mandatory when crossing small gaps. The search for coconuts felt easier with my new ally alongside me. Together we ventured deeper into the Divine Beast Cave, and the deeper we went, the more I could feel a lurking sense of evil in the air. Nothing felt quite as cruel as the weapon durability system. You may have taken notice of the abundance of yellow bags in my inventory. Those bags contain repair powder. Repair powder is your saving grace in this world. If a weapon's durability drops to 0, it's immediately broken, losing all of its gems and attributes permanently. The only exception to this rule is the starting weapon each character has, but it still loses everything. You just get to keep the busted sword afterwards. I'm upgrading a sword I found in the dungeon. It's now at level 4 and has taken a considerable amount of time and effort to get this far. 2 attacks with the sword take its durability down from 17 to 7. One more swing could be a disaster for me, so I'm forced to swap out my weapons until I can repair it. Moments later, I'm fighting this cute little dragon and press the attack button one too many times and break my starting weapon. Just like that, it's all lost. All of its acquired levels and attributes. Weapons are very fickle in Dark Cloud. At this point, I was 3.5 hours into my playthrough, and the town was really starting to come together. Rebooting the game after spending the day contributing to capitalism was really nice. It felt warm. And now, after an action-packed 12.5 minutes of video, we're back to the beginning. The blue skies, green grass, and rustic windmill are now a part of the world we've rebuilt. It brings about a much-needed calm, a stillness to the world that has been absent since our adventure started. We can take our time and work our way up the stairs of the tower, watching the cogs turn, the lights bleeding in from above. This is one of the special moments where you're encouraged by the game to let go for a moment and to simply take in the safety and calm of the space you're in. An interesting detail about this game's development is that this was the first project that the studio produced. The studio, Level 5, only had 11 employees. Level 5 as a studio name was a clever reference to the Japanese school system's report cards, where a Level 5 was the highest mark you could receive. While the team that developed this game certainly had experience prior to working on this project, there must have been some novelty to shipping this new studio's first game, and onto the PS2 no less. Partnered with Sony Entertainment. This was a big deal for them. They had something to prove to the world. Another impressive detail about this game is that it was developed in just about 2 years. That's a fast turnover for any game, especially one with such ambitious goals in mind. Okay, I'm done glazing up the developers, I'm satisfied. I'm ready to return to the mines. But wait, I finally reached the boss. I'm gonna need to stock up on supplies if I have any chance of surviving this encounter. See, I've made a few regrettable mistakes at this point in my playthrough. I've lost a powerful weapon, or 2, to the durability system, and well, mostly I've just been avoiding doing any grinding at all. I'm one of those dopamine-starved weirdos that can't fathom why someone would play an MMO. I don't want to grind, I want the story to progress, and I want it now. So apparently Dran, the Divine Beast, needs to be being to submission if he's going to be freed of this curse. Not sure why Dran being evil is a problem if he's at the bottom of the cave system, but who am I to pass judgments? If the Fairy King wants me to do it, then I guess I have to. He tells me to use my power to break the curse, but I don't know what he's referring to here. And finally, we're getting a serious boss fight. No QuickTime events, no reusing enemies we've already faced off against. This is a bespoke encounter. And trust me when I say that it's one of the better boss fights in this game. Dran remains afloat 5 feet higher than I could hope to reach, so I spent some time circling about, waiting for his first attack. I'm not sure what to expect here. We saw a fireball during the cutscene, so I know he has fireballs, but who knows? I guess the floor is made of drywall. Rookie mistake, I should have known. I've only lost 40 HP to this misstep, but that's pretty devastating for an opening attack. The fight goes on like this for about 15 minutes. We trade blows, mostly him blowing me up. I go through nearly all of my supplies, and the stakes have never been higher. I become careless and take a spill into the darkness. Just like that, it's over. Slump. Facing an unexpected failure like this was demotivating. I'd put myself up against this 20-plus-year-old RPG with no walkthroughs or guides. I believed my indomitable sense of purpose would keep me trudging forward against any and all odds. But this game tossed aside these foolish notions. I was nourishing what little I had left, like a candle in a hurricane. I couldn't let my precious light be snuffed out. Much like the Christmas sky beast, known as Santa, I was powered by the beliefs of the people. My town was half-heartedly thrown together with minimal care up to this point. I needed to invest into the people that had been supporting me. Also, they always gave me a nice treat when I met their demands. My town was more satiated now than ever before. I prepared myself for battle once again, and then maybe 3 or 4 more times after that. I don't want to spend half this video showing the cycle of me collecting supplies and then getting my booty smacked over and over, so let's do the fairy tale version of this and jump ahead to my final encounter with Dran. It went exactly the same as every other attempt to beat him, except this time, I didn't fall into holes quite as frequently. And by now, I had learned about his excessively broken hitboxes, so I was really cutting down on the number of mistakes I'd been making. I could feel the anticipation in my bones. One more slingshot rock to the crotch, and this hulking dog dragon would collapse. Dran finally comes to and we fill him in on what's been going on. He's shocked that he's been manipulated by this unseen evil, but I'm not really surprised after knowing that he's out here losing fights to teenage boys and their catgirl companions. Dran gives us an apology, which was much needed at this point. I had a really hard time with this dude. He starts talking about the Black Demon appearing in East Terra and the many massacres that this creature brought about. Up until now, the game has felt pretty child-friendly, nothing too dark, but apparently this Black Demon wiped out almost everyone except for, and I quote, a few people on Earth. Are there people that aren't on Earth? Our town exists in a time period where they have no electricity and still rely on candles and crude lighting solutions. I highly doubt we're on the moon already. Okay, so ignore everything I just said because there's a tribe called the Moon People that have apparently created a magical urn that could be used to trap the Dark Genie, and it was a success until recently. I may have brushed past the summoning ritual cutscene that's shown when you first start the game. I spent a lot of time thinking about the story of Dark Cloud, and it just feels so obnoxious to be plunged into this awkward summoning scene as a starting point. It doesn't really even serve as exposition because you have no context for what it means until after defeating Dran, and that's like 4 hours into the game, at least. Dran recommends that we ally with the Moon People if we want to defeat the Dark Genie, so our goal is clear: find the Moon People. On a side note, he mentions that the Fairy King dislikes humans, and that it's very unlike him to give us the Atlamillia. He gives us the lift back to town, and I decide to finally put the finishing touches on the city. 100% satisfaction at last. Dran returns and graces me with a new ability, Windmill Slash. I'm feeling pretty cash money right about now. It's time for our adventure to continue. We're leaving home and embarking on a long and treacherous journey. Matataki Village. While not entirely different from Norune, our hometown, Matataki feels more complicated. We see a dried up river, a natural arch, maybe signs of erosion. This is likely the first time our protagonist has ventured out from their small town. And right on cue, there's another surprise. A tiny man in a bear costume has been spotted fleeing the scene. But I don't have time to confront my feelings about Short Kings. I need to investigate our new stomping grounds. We stumble upon this treant that's either asleep or dehydrated. Oh, good, the Fairy King is here to fill us in. Apparently, the treant is named Treant and controls the water element. It's up to us to restore running water to the river, and eventually ensure it reaches a treant, so that it may speak again. It's got a really bad case of dry mouth or something. Exhausted after hearing the hardly lucid ramblings of the Fairy King, I seek out a refreshing change of personality. I want to see what this bear man has to offer. For starters, he is unfazed by heights, and has the acrobatic prowess of a cat, always landing feet first. He suspects that I'm in cohorts with the same forces of evil that destroyed his town. This caused me to ponder on the vilification of femboys. Is this where it all started? My hands are up in a gesture suggesting innocence in this situation, and Bear Boy's focused on how I have a villain's face. I don't think there's even a sliver of ill will behind those eyes.
Yeah, baby. Oh, there's diagonals. Oh, man. I have to hit these. I have to hit this.
Like I said, cat-like acrobatic prowess. I was disappointed but not defeated. Round 2. Wait, what? He just called me a wimp. I'm a lot of things, and a wimp is one of them. This felt tailored to hurt me personally. I would not let this meatlet of a man insult me. I danced around him like a chupacabra, with each attempted attack only furthering his own demise. Emotionally disassembled, face down in the dirt, the bear boy accepts me as the apex predator in his food chain. He then flees back up into his treehouse, carefully avoiding the ladder that has been so carefully crafted. He informs us that his tummy ache was holding him back, and after a little snacky wacky, he'll be prepared to take us on for real. I return the next day and he's already made peace with yesterday's loss. He's missing his hunter's earrings, which allow for the wearer to understand the forest fairy's spoken language. Since we don't have Google Translate, these earrings are likely going to be required for us to progress the story. At this point, I was feeling pretty fatigued. There was just so much that had happened in such a short amount of time. I looked forward to the next dungeon being a breath of fresh air. I stumbled into the Wise Owl Forest, unsure of what lay ahead. To my dismay, it was exactly the same format as the Divine Beast Cave. We had new enemies, a new setting, and that's just about it. I might be biased in this because of my background experience in game development, but I was really let down by this dungeon. A lot of the charm and excitement that was in the first segment of the game was wearing off now. As I stepped foot onto the second territory, Monday attempted to ambush me, spear in hand. It was at this point that I realized the names for enemies were beginning to get truly ridiculous. I had fought a Thursday and I think a Friday already. Were there 7 of these, one for each day of the week? Whose idea was this? In the original Japanese release of this game, these were known as, and forgive me in advance for my lack of culture and embarrassing pronunciation, Pokuru. They're based off of the Koro Pakoro, which are a race of small people in folklore of the Ainu people of the northern Japanese islands. However, in the English release of this game, these were renamed to Pakol, which means to swindle, cheat, or hustle. Localization changes are really interesting to me, so I thought I'd do the extra research. I continued to devastate and demolish the local ecosystem. Cannibal plants, the 7 days of the week, it was all the same to me. I just wanted the next goofy cutscene, and until then, I would dissociate and kill. You may recall that to progress between floors in the previous dungeon, we would generally need to defeat enemies until one of them dropped a key. Well, in this dungeon, there are 3 potential keys. You see, this owl is the guardian of this vine-covered doorway, and he won't be satisfied until we bring him the specific item he wants on this particular floor. Maybe this time it's a red berry, that the game describes as a nut, but next time it's a shiny stone. The result of this modified key system is that we will occasionally get a key item early on and get lucky with the owl, skipping a bit of time on that floor. Okay, it's about time that I talk about fishing. Dark Cloud has some really pretty water, and some pretty cute little fish. Fishing isn't a sport for you to simply enjoy though, it's a means to an end. You get fishing points when you catch fish, and you get more points for bigger and more rare fish. You can redeem these points for weapons, gems, useful items, you name it. Without spoiling too much, I can say with certainty that fishing spared me many, many hours that I would have otherwise spent grinding the dungeons. And I mean, look at how cozy this is. I wish I could just sit here and fish all day. Sorry, for a second there I was thinking, what if I really did it? Just sat here, just kept fishing. Yeah, that'd be weird. No, that'd be weird of me. Yeah. I had collected a considerable number of atlas at this point and thought I might have enough river pieces to reconnect the river. It turns out I did not have enough. I did, however, get a hold of the shopkeeper for this area. I decided to pop in for a visit, but not before I checked the perimeter for potential loot that may have been left out for me. A fire gem. It's fine, I guess. I invade this stranger's home, uninvited as usual, seeking supplies for my travels. Maybe I'm nitpicking, but those glasses look a bit too small to be helpful. I would know. I also wear glasses for the aesthetic. I just think it looks good. I really like how we get a little portrait view of the owl. Very cute. Also, thank you who makes me so upset. They should have said, thank who. Ugh. Now that my bag was stuffed with water, bread, and holy water, I was ready to part ways with this connoisseur of aesthetics. Next up, there's a very cute couple that I need to speak with. Bunbuku and Kululu. Couples like these are why furries exist. A cozy house in the woods, lit by candlelight, your partner's wearing the skin of a possum. I mean, that's the dream, right? Purely out of respect for their love, I put the final touches on their home. It's as good as new, and we're being rewarded with an event. What goofy scenarios would ensue? It seems like I may have stepped in at a bad time. They call me upstairs to be a witness to their domestic issues. Bunbuku seems to have eaten something very important to Kalulu. This is a certified classic amongst couples looking for something to fight about. He fears for Kalulu's safety as she's taken upon herself to emotionally traumatize Bunbuku for his traitorous act. What's the lesson in this, I hear you ask? Stay single, it's not worth it. No matter how cute she looks in her little tiny wolf hat thing, just don't do it. Unfortunately, I don't have an item that she's satisfied with yet, so this domestic dispute is left hanging over us. My primal need for resolution drives me forward, and into someone else's home. I need a distraction. Perform for me, loot boy. He seeks my approval, informing me that this was an original piece. Very impressive. The Loot Lad tells us the story of Fudo. Fudo is a highly respected warrior, and was the one that took down the great monster known as White Tiger. He was seen as invincible, worshipped by his people as the guardian god, whatever that means. Unfortunately, 5 years ago, he disappeared. There were rumors that he was killed by a monster called Killer Snake. They said though injured, he still fought the Killer Snake and died bravely. I don't know about you, but this feels like foreshadowing, and not just because I put a giant snake in the opening for this video. He gives us the odd tone flute and warns us that it sounds like a mouse, so playing it in the wrong place could attract snakes. Surely this isn't a sign of what's to come. I return to the jungle, and oh, would you look at that? I didn't even play the flute yet. The beast jumps out at me. It's not a snake. Or maybe it's two funny looking snakes. Either way, I use my pacifist combat style to overcome their attack, cutting the throat of the last standing snake in a diplomatic fashion. Okay, but there's a cave. What if I play the flute in front of this cave? This is the moment that a story really comes together, a recalling of the past but with the context of the present. We're reaching the end of this road. The curiosities of why and when have been answered. We read stories so that we can appreciate the entirety of the story at once, when it finally all coalesces into a single snake battling spectacle. Will our protagonist survive this encounter? Let's find out. Thanks for watching. I'd love to continue this series and would also love to hear back from you. Let me know your thoughts and what you'd like to see from future videos. If enough people ask for more, then I'll continue the story from right here where we left off. See ya!